On April 28, 2026, the United Arab Emirates made an announcement that sent shockwaves through global economic markets. After nearly 6 decades of membership, the UAE quit OPEC and OPEC Plus, effective 1st of May. Now, if you've heard this and thought, okay, oil stuff, not my problem, I want you to stay with me, because the story is really about the fracturing of Arab unity, the Iran war, the green energy transition, and what happens when a small but incredibly wealthy country decides it no longer needs to play by anyone else's rules. Let's break it down from the beginning. OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, was founded in 1960 by 5 nations: Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela. The idea was simple but powerful. If oil producing countries coordinate how much they produce, they can control the price. Supply goes down, price goes up. It's economics 101. But at a geopolitical scale, today OPEC has 12 members, controlling about 30% of global oil supply. And through the expanded OPEC Plus framework, which includes Russia, Kazakhstan, and others, that jumps to about 41% of global supply. That's almost half of the world's oil coordinated by one cartel. The UAE joined initially through the Emirate of Abu Dhabi in 1967, 4 years before it even became a unified country. It formally joined as the UAE in 1971. For over 5 decades, it was a core, loyal member. Here's where the tension starts. The UAE is one of the most efficient oil producers in the world. It invested massively in its oil infrastructure, especially through ADNOC, its national oil company. By 2026, its production capacity had reached approximately 4.8 million barrels per day. But OPEC's quota? Around 3.2 million barrels per day. Starting around 2021, the UAE began pushing hard for a much higher share of OPEC's output. Why? Because it had invested billions in new capacity and wasn't allowed to use it. Every day, around 1.6 million barrels of potential revenue was sitting unused because of a quota agreed upon when UAE's infrastructure was far smaller. The UAE even pressed OPEC to lift its limit by around 50% to roughly 5 million barrels per day. Those demands soared its relations with Saudi Arabia. Now here's the deeper reason behind the push. And this is the part most people miss. The UAE was increasingly concerned about the rise of green energy, which threatened a long-running slide in real fossil fuel prices. Sustainable technologies looked so promising that the UAE actually invested heavily in solar farms, sustainability aircraft fuel, and low-emission hydrogen. The logic? If oil is going to be worth less than 20 years, you pump as much as you can today. Get the revenue now, diversify your economy now, don't sit on it. So the UAE had been frustrated for years. But what pushed them over the edge in April 2026 was the ongoing US-Israel war on Iran. OPEC's Gulf producers have been struggling to ship exports through the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow choke point between Iran and Oman, through which a fifth of the world's crude oil and LNG normally passes. Think about that. Iran is an OPEC member, and Iran was attacking vessels, threatening Gulf shipping, and effectively strangling the exports of its own fellow cartel members. The UAE's production capacity had grown to 4.8 million barrels per day, but under its OPEC agreement, it was only allowed to produce 3.2 million barrels per day. And now, even that 3.2 million couldn't easily reach markets. The UAE has been able to sell some of its oil via the Fujairah terminal on the Gulf of Oman, allowing it to bypass the strait. Last year, it exported 1.7 million barrels per day this way, not enough to meet its ambition. As Johns Hopkins economist Steve Hanke, who advised the UAE government for years, put it, the Iran war made it job one for the UAE to take the money and run. OPEC stood partially in the way, and now the Iran war poses a much bigger danger. The UAE energy minister confirmed the timing was strategic. He told CNN the decision was taken now precisely because the Strait of Hormuz closure limits the immediate market impact. reducing the shock to oil prices. Smart. Leave at a moment when you can't pump anyway, so markets don't panic. But this isn't just economics, it's geopolitics. And the UAE-Saudi relationship, which once looked like an iron alliance, has been cracking for years. The UAE's assertive foreign policy has progressively isolated it from fellow OPEC members, especially Saudi Arabia, which disagrees with its positions on Yemen and elsewhere. Both countries joined a coalition to fight Yemen Houthis rebels in 2015, but the coalition broke down when Saudi Arabia bombed what it described as a weapons shipment bound for Yemeni separatists backed by the UAE. Then there's Israel. Abu Dhabi has been carving out its own sphere of influence across the Middle East and Africa, doubling down on relations with the US and Israel, with which it opened ties through the Abraham Accords in 2020. And crucially, when the UAE Energy Minister announced the exit, he was asked whether they consulted Saudi Arabia. His answer? The UAE did not raise the issue with any other country. This is a policy decision. That's a diplomatic statement that says everything. So the UAE is out, effective May 1st. What does this mean going forward? First, OPEC loses a massive contributor. Last year, OPEC brought in $455 billion in oil sales. The UAE was responsible for $77 billion of that, just under 17%. Second, who's next? Experts say Kazakhstan could follow as another significant producer that wants to grow. Nigeria is also considered a flight risk, as the ramp-up of the Dangote refinery means it can process more oil at home, reducing reliance on OPEC's strategy of price support through supply curves. Venezuela is also being watched. Countries including Qatar, Ecuador, and Angola have already left in past years, citing frustration with quotas or shifting national priorities. Angola as recently as 2024. One analyst said, if countries abiding by their quota get disgusted with those that don't, we could see additional exits that eventually make OPEC irrelevant as a cartel. And finally, the big picture. The real loser from the UAE's decision, according to one expert, is the idea of a collective capacity for Arab fuel-producing states to shape the global energy order. That idea, built in 1960, weaponized in 1973 during the oil embargo, may be coming to its end. The UAE joining OPEC in 1967 was part of a larger story. Newly independent nations in the global south using their natural resources to push back against Western economic domination. For decades, it worked, but now the UAE is wealthy enough, connected enough, and strategically positioned enough that it can no longer need the collective. It's choosing to go alone, whether that's the right call, whether it fractures Arab economic solidarity further, or whether it's simply a rational actor making a rational choice. That's a debate worth having. What I know right now is this: the world's energy map is being redrawn right now, and understanding why matters. Whether you're an investor, a policy student, or just someone trying to make sense of a world that seems to shift every week. If this helped you make sense of it, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching Goodin Explains.